All right, so here we go.
Okay.
So first thing I'm going to show you is just a basic search, just to show you how it works. So I'm going to search for dogs. And then we get our search results. So first thing I want to show you is these boxes over here. These are filters. So you notice how it says ebooks, you have 8 of them, and music CDs. So if I click on ebooks, notice up here I have 309 results. So if I click on ebook, it will eliminate everything except the ebooks. So now I just have 8 books showing.
Right.
And you can click more than one box at a time. And so I just wanted to show you what that was for, so that way you know how to filter what you need.
Okay.
Another thing I wanted to show you is if you ever want to share your search results, you have a share search box here. So if I click the share search box, it gives me this big long link. And if I select it and copy it, and then I paste it into another box here, you'll notice when I press enter, it will bring up the same search results. So what you can do is you can email that link to people if you ever want to share the results, but be careful because a lot of email programs, if there's a space in the link, they'll only make the link work up to the space and the rest of it won't work. So when they click on the link in their email, it won't work. So if you're going to share that link in an email, you might want to put it as directions. If clicking on the link doesn't work, then copy the link instead and paste it into another tab in the browser.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. So that is that. Now I'm going to switch to another area here. And we're going to go to...
So I've never even seen this program. No one has showed it to me. So this is like the first I've seen it. So this is like when I pull this up, this is what I'm going to see when it first comes up?
Yes, you will see the
Okay.
screen. And then what I'm going to show you now is, let me go back here, is I want to show you how to do, well, the searches. Like right here is a basic search. You'll notice here how you have your anywhere, author, subject, title. And then if you have your enhanced search, you have more options you can choose from.
Oh, okay.
But still, not all the options are there.
Right.
Now notice when I clicked enhanced search, I have this drop-down box, and then I have this one long box going across. Now watch what happens when I sign in. I'm going to sign in. And once you're signed in, when you click enhanced search, notice how you have this long box like before, but you also have this little box. Now, you say you never seen M5. You do have M5 with us, correct?
Yes, I've just never looked at it before.
All right. So the reason why I wanted to show you the difference here when you sign in is because sometimes not everything is available here. For example, location is not selectable.
Okay.
So if you ever want to search for a value in the location field, you would type here in this box right here, 852 pound A, because I happen to know that 852A is the location field. And whenever you type a value in this little box, it overrides what you have selected here in the drop-down.
Okay.
So it's now going to search for, let's say if I put test, it will search for that word in 852A. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to show you that. And now I'm going to show you the easy way to add a item to your database, and then I'll show you the hard way. So the easy way is record fetch. You'll only see the record fetch option when you're signed in, and when you click record fetch, by default, it's set up to search the Library of Congress. Okay? But when we set you up, we usually give you more sites for it to search.
Okay.
So I'm going to search for dogs, and I'm going to click search. And then it brings up a list of books from the Library of Congress. So I'm going to add this book to my database from the Library of Congress. So to add this book, all you do is you click the down arrow here where it says Choose Database. You click on Library, and then you just click Add Record To. Okay?
Okay.
And once I click that, it adds the record, and it says one record added. So now this book is in my database. But you will notice you have a red circle here, and it says 0 of 0 available. Because there's two parts to a record. You have the bibliographic record, which is this right here, which I added. And then you have the holding record, which is not added yet. Okay, so to add the holding record, I have to click on the title of the book. And then here I click Add Holding.
Okay.
So I'm going to click that. And then you get this right here. Now, the fields you want to fill in is the class number. And the class number is field 852H of the holding. You should write that down. That's going to be important for later. So the class number is 852H of the holding. And what you put in the class number is either FIC if it's a fiction book, or a Dewey number if it's nonfiction. Like a Dewey number would be 802.369, for example. So we're going to pretend this is a fiction book, so I'm going to put FIC. And then the next field you want to fill in is the item part, which is field 852I. For some reason, I'm at a loss of memory. I believe that's 852I. Let's see. If I put that in there and go to yes, 852I. Okay, so that's 852I. You might want to write that down. And that is the first three letters of the author's last name.
First, okay.
Let's pretend the first three letters is ABC. So I'll put ABC. And then, of course, you want to assign a barcode number to the record. And then down here, you could choose which item group you want the record to be in. Now, sometimes people will use the prefix field, which is field 852K. And an example of how you use the prefix is, for example, let's say you have adult fiction and young fiction, and you want to tell the difference between the two. Well, you can put a Y in here in the prefix, or you could put an A, so you know if it's an adult fiction or a young fiction. But some libraries, they don't use the prefix, they just leave it blank, and they'll just put FIC.
Okay.
So now I'm going to click Save. And now I have a holding. Right here's the holding. And you'll notice because I have a holding, I no longer have a red circle. I got a green circle with a check mark, and it says 1 of 1 available. So by me having one holding here, that means I have one copy of this book. Now let's say you had two copies of the same book. Then you would add another holding. So I would click Add Holding. I would put the FIC here. The first three letters of the author's last name, and then give it another barcode, and then click Save. And now I have two copies of the book. Now sometimes you might have many copies of a book. For example, let's say it's a textbook. You might have 20 copies of that textbook, and you don't want to have to keep clicking Add Holding 18 more times. So there's a simple way to do that. So if you ever have to add a lot of holdings to a book, you can edit any of the holdings that belong to the bib. So I'll just pick one, I'll edit it, and then I'll scroll down to the bottom. And you see where it says here, Generate Holdings? If I check that box, I want to create 18 more holdings, so I put 18. And then we'll start at barcode 1002. And increment by 1. Now, if you ever want to put letters before the barcode, you could do that right here. You could put, for example, ABC, and now if I create those barcodes, it'll be ABC 1002, ABC 1003, ABC 1004. But I'm not going to use letters, I'm just going to use numbers. So I'm going to create 18 holdings, starting at barcode 1002, and it's going to increment by 1. And now if I click Save, you see how it created the other 18 much easier.
Yeah.
So that's a nice feature to use if you ever have to add a lot of holdings. Think of a holding as a placeholder. That's the actual physical copy of the book. So the bibliographic portion of the record, which is this right here, that's the bibliographic record. These holdings are attached to this bibliographic record. And I have 20 holdings, which means I have 20 copies of this book. And now if I go back to return the search results, it'll even tell you, you have 20 of 20 available. If I happen to load one of them, it'll say you have 19 of 20 available.
Okay.
So that is how you add a record the easy way. But sometimes not all records are found using record fetch. So if you cannot find the record, then you have to add it the hard way. And the hard way to add a record is you go here where it says catalog, you click the down arrow, and then you choose add record. The reason why this is the hard way is none of the fields are filled in for you.
Oh.
So you have to fill in the fields. So I'm going to title this book Ham Radio. And when you're adding a book manually, always make sure you fill in these fields. The class field, remember that? That's when you're doing it the other way. And then the item part, first 3 letters of the author's last name. And then the barcode number, I'll give it 2000. And then you can choose what group you want it in. And then you can click Save. Now, the reason why it's important you fill in the class number, the item part, and the barcode is because when you save the record, the holding will be created at the same time. That's the difference between adding it manually and adding it through record fetch. Through record fetch, your fields here in the bibliographic record will be filled in automatically, but no holding will be created. You have to click on the title and then click Add Holding to then add the holding to that record from record fetch. But if you're adding the record manually, then if you fill in these fields here and then click Save, you see the holdings created at the same time.
Oh, okay.
And notice also when I go to edit the record, all the other fields are gone. It only kept the fields that I filled in. All right? So another thing I wanted to show you is you could also print your spine labels and your barcode labels from here. So if I click on the title of the book and edit the holding, you have this print barcode button here. So if I click that, you get this sheet of labels as if you have the sheet in your hand, and then you can click on the specific label you want to print to. So if I click on this label here, it prints to that label, then I can click print and print that to the printer.
Oh, okay.
And you could also do the same for spine labels. You click that, it brings you up the sheet of labels. If I click this label right here, you can see it printed to that label, and then you can print the spine label by clicking print up here. Now, another thing I wanted to show you as well.
Now hold on, back up.
Yep.
So to get to that, you hit edit in the book that you're on. Okay.
Yeah, you just click on the title of the book. I'll go back, I'll do it again. Click on the title of the book, and then edit the holding, and then you got your buttons here.
Okay.
All right. Now, I'm going to show you something else.
Okay.
When you go to add a record, you have different templates you could choose from. Like that's a book template, that's a CD-ROM template, ebook template. It defaults to the book template. Now, you might not want all the fields that are here. You might not need them all. You might just confuse people. Or by default, you might want fields here that are not here right now. So what you can do is you can customize this. So, for example, in order to customize this, you have to switch to Advanced Editor. Right now we're in Basic Editor, and you can always tell when you're in Basic Editor because you see the names of the fields.
Right.
When you go to Advanced Editor, you see the numbers instead.
Oh, okay.
So if I wanted to delete a subfield, like let's say subfield C of 245 I don't want, I just click the X and the C field disappears.
Okay.
Or if I wanted to insert a field here in the 100 field, I'll just move the mouse over 100, click Insert Subfield, choose the subfield, click OK, and then it inserts that field G.
Okay.
Or if I want to delete a field completely, like 264, I just move the mouse, choose Delete, and I delete that whole field. Let's say you want to add a field that doesn't exist. You can click Insert Field up here, and it tells you the names of all the fields. So if I want to insert 222, I click the box, I click OK, and then it shows me the subfields I can add to that field. So I'll pick 2 fields, I'll click OK, and now I have a 222 field with those 2 subfields.
Okay.
So once you get this template looking the way you want, you can then save it. And the way you do that then is you switch back to Basic Editor, and then you just choose Save as Template, and you can either click OK, which will override the existing template, or give the template a new name. And I'll just call it Book 9876, and if I click OK, I now have a template right here called Book 9876 I just created. So that way you can create your own custom templates. Now, whenever you go to add a new book, it always goes into the Basic Editor. Whenever you edit an existing book, it always takes you into the Advanced Editor.
Okay.
Now, one good trick is if you're not sure, if you're in Basic Editor and you're not sure what number field title is, I'll just type a bunch of stuff in there, and then I'll switch to Advanced Editor. I'll look for that stuff, and there it is right there. So now I know title is the 245A field.
Okay.
So if you ever want to know what fields they are, you just go here and it shows you the fields. This is based on the MARC format. That's a format that all libraries use. So if you go to Google and you type in MARC, MARC, M-A-R-C 21, which is what it's called, you'll get this right here. And if you click this, this is the standard for all libraries that use the MARC format. We didn't invent this. This is a standard that all libraries use. You'll notice here, if I click here, 220 to 240, it shows me that 245 is the title, just like on our software.
Okay.
And then if I click full, it'll actually show you the subfields. So you see title is 245A. So you can always use this. It's very useful.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I wanted to show you that. Another thing I wanted to show you is you got the reset and the home button. These 2 buttons do the same thing. The only difference is reset will sign you out, the home button will not. And all it does is just takes you back to the main page. And now I want to show you some features here. Do you use reading levels like Lexile, Fountain and Pinnell? I'll just show you quickly what it is. Different libraries will use this to tell, for example, reading levels, what grade the book is designed to work with.
Okay.
But I just want to show you an example of a search. So if you want to do Lexile, you just click that, and then you can use these sliding bars to search within a Lexile range. Or if you have a search you want to do that's precise, sometimes it's hard to get precise when you're putting these so close together, you can type in the box and then type here the other number you want, to give yourself a range. And then you can do it that way. So I just wanted to show you these different features here.
Oh, okay.
Another thing I wanted to show you is these bulletin board buttons. All these bulletin board buttons are just links. For example, if I click on the news button, it takes me to this news site right here. Or if I click on the web search button, It'll take me to Google's search. And you can change the names of these buttons, and you can also change where they link to, and I'm going to show you how to do that when we get into setup. And if you don't want these buttons, you can turn them off. Now you can't turn off one button at a time. Either you turn off all four or you keep all four.
Okay.
And then down here you have your other boxes, and again you can change the names of each of these boxes, or you can turn off each box one at a time if you don't want them. So let me explain to you visual search. If you click here, it expands. Now there's three types of buttons you can create in visual search. One type of button is called a topic button. A topic button is like a folder. It's like a button that you'll put other buttons in. So for example, inventory is a topic button. So if I click it, you're just going to get other buttons. So when I click chemistry, you'll notice there's different chemistry topics within the chemistry button.
Mm-hmm.
The other type of button you could create is what's called a query button. Space travel is the query button. So if I click it, it's going to look for a book called Space Travel. I don't have any, but if it had one, it would have brought it up. All right, and then the last type of button you can create is called a link button. It acts just like these buttons right here. It just takes you to a link you set up. So this is a link button right here. So if I click this button, it takes me to this web page right here. And I'm going to show you how to create all these different buttons when we get in the setup. The other type of box is your recommended reading box. And here, if you click on a book, it takes you right to that book. And these are books that you want to recommend to people. And then over here is a gallery. You can add pictures if you want to, and then you can also add a link to the picture if you want to. I didn't add a link to this picture, but if you scroll through, you will see the different pictures. All right, that's the gallery. Now if you scroll down here, you got your flags for your different languages, and then you have your contact librarian button here. So if you click this, you put in your email address, the subject, a message, and then if you click send, this message will be sent to the librarian. And I'll show you when we get into setup where that email address that this is going to send it to is kept. Another option you have, and you only have this option when you're signed in, is this library assistant. If you click it, it brings you to this page here, and here you can find answers to questions you might have. You also have here your documentation. You can go to your online documentation and you can read the user manuals. And if you click on the PDF symbol, you can download the manuals. And it also shows you the version of the M5 that's currently out. And then if you click it, it'll show you the changes made to that version. So there's all kinds of things you can look up here. So if you ever want to know the answer to something, go in here first, see if you can find it, and then if you cannot find it, you can call us up, and we can tell you the answer. Another thing I want to show you is if we scroll back up here, I want to show you the cataloging tools section. So you click here, and you go to cataloging tools.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm waiting for it to take me in there. All right. So cataloging tools, you can do all these different features right here, and I'm going to go over each one of them with you. So first thing I'm going to go over is importing records. So when you get books from a library, they might send you a MARC file for you to import the books into the system. So it's easier for you, so you don't have to add them one at a time. So you can go here. You can also import patrons too. So for example, if someone has an Excel file with all your patrons in the Excel file, you can convert that Excel file to a comma delimited or tab delimited, and then you can import all the patrons into your system. So for now, I'm going to show you how to import of books. So I'm going to switch to the bibliographic records, and we're going to import a MARC formatted file. So to do that, you click the folder right here, and then you navigate to where that file is. And I'm going to go there. And I'm going to import this file called nursing. So I'm going to double click it. Shows up down here. And then I'm going to choose upload. And now I'm going to find the nursing file. There it is right there. So to import it, I just go across and I choose import. So these are the books that are in the nursing file. There's 25 books. And I'm just going to click next. And then you have these boxes. These boxes allow you to see different parts of each record. So for example, I know the 245 field is the title field. So if I click on 245, I will see the title information for this book, which is called Nutrition. I can also click the arrows here and scroll through and look at the different titles. Or I happen to know 650 is the subject. So if I click on 650 here, I get the subject information. And you start memorizing these fields. I don't even know what all these fields are. I just know the ones I use on a daily basis. So the ones you use on a daily basis are usually title, author, subject, call number, date of publication, publisher. Those are ones you use all the time, and you start to memorize what numbers they are. And you'll also notice that the fields are already mapped. So in other words, this field here is already mapped to go to 650X. You don't have to worry about mapping them. Whereas if this was a delimited file, not a MARC formatted file, for example, like a patron record, then you'd have to tell the system what field to map it to. So for example, if I wanted to map this methods to a different field, I would click the double arrows. I would choose a different field, and then I would scroll down back to that field I selected, and now it shows me the subfields, and then I would choose the field, and then would map to that field instead. Now, one thing that's important is when you get to this step, always look and see if there's an 852 box. The reason why that's important is because if there's not an 852 box, and you import the records, then what will happen is when you're done, you'll have a bunch of bibliographic records with no holdings attached. And then you would have to go and manually add a holding to each of those bibs. But by having this 852 box, you could see it's got the 852H field, the I field, the barcode field, which is the P field. So you know that when you import this, that the holdings will be created at the same time, and when you're done, you will have holdings attached to the bibs. So always make sure when you get to the step, look and see if you have an 852 box.
Okay.
If you don't, you have to call the vendor where you're getting the books from and let them know that you need the 852 box included, and you need to tell them what the values should be for the H and the P, the P and the I. So once you get to this step now, you're ready to go to the next step. So you click next, and then you choose what group you want the items to go to. So I want them to go into the general collection, and now I'm going to click finish. So now it starts the import, and now you'll notice I got a split screen. You won't always get this. You will only get this when you're importing a book that already exists in the system. So if you ever get the split screen, the information on the left is from the file you're importing, and the information on the right is the item that's in your system. And then you have to decide how you want to handle that, and you got 4 options down here. The first option is save existing. That means it's not going to overwrite this record that's already in your system. It's going to save it, keep it, and it's just going to add a holding to the record. The other option is replace existing. That means it's going to take the record on the left, and this record on the left is going to overwrite the record on the right. And then it's going to add the holding to the record. The other option you have is import, which means it will leave this record on the right alone, and it will import this one, and now you will have two bibliographic records in the system with the same title. Or you can select do not import, which means nothing will happen, it'll just go to the next record. So I'm going to click save existing, and now it's going to import, and now it found another duplicate. Now you might have a lot of duplicates, and you don't always want to have to choose your selection, because it can slow you down. So we have this box here called don't show this window again. You see that box?
Mm-hmm.
So by clicking that box, if I choose a button, next time it runs into the scenario, it'll remember the button that you selected and execute that button behind the scenes. So I have this box selected. I'm going to choose Save Existing, and now it's importing the rest of them, and if it runs into that scenario, it's just going to execute the Save Existing again, and now it's done importing the records, and then it gives you a log of the import so you can see the outcome of the import that you did.
Okay.
And you can print it as well, and that is how you import. Now there might be times you want to export records. Whenever you export records out of Mandarin, you're exporting them into a MARC file. So to export, you just go down here and you search for what you want. You can type in dogs and search for that. I don't have that many records, so in my example, I'm just going to put an asterisk. An asterisk means it will search any item that has a subject. All right? So I'm just going to click search just so I can get a bunch of records, and there's my records. And then I can either select all, or I can choose which records I want to export. So I selected 3 records, and then I go down, I click next, and then I give it a file name. Notice I put a .txt extension. It tells you to do that right here. Include a txt extension. So always make sure you put that txt, that .txt at the end of the file name. And then I'll click finish. It'll export the records, and it put them into this file that I called this test.txt. And if you want to, you can right click the file and choose save link as, and then I can download this file to my computer. I can navigate to where I want to save it, and I can save it to my computer. You might also be able to just click on the file, and it'll give you the option to save it possibly. And that's it. That's all there is to exporting records. Then you
Now, what's your purpose of ever exporting? Like when you get rid of a book or something, you mean? Is that what you mean?
No. Purpose of exporting is if you have a third-party program you want to import Mandarin records into.
Oh,
You might have a different program that supports the MARC format, and you might want to get it into a different
gotcha. Okay.
program. So now we got this other option called ISSN ISBN fetch. This you don't have to worry about because this existed before record fetch. We made record fetch after this. And record fetch does the same thing as this, but it's much easier to use. So we won't go into this. This is just something that's left over from the past.
Okay.
And then here we got find and replace. You could do a lot of things in find and replace. One thing you can do is you can create a custom report, for example. There's a way to do a search here where you can bring up all the books that have been marked deleted. You might want to get that and then print out the list. Or you might want to do a search on all the books that are marked missing. You could do that here and then print all the books that are marked missing. If you ever want to know how to do that, just call us up and we can tell you how to do that. For now, I'm just going to do a simple asterisk search like I did before and click search and get a list of items. So let's say you made a custom search and you got the items you wanted. You can now click print, and then you get this nice printout that you can print to your printer. Now, one thing I want to show you is you can also sort this. If I want to sort it by title, I can click here. Or if I want to sort it by remainder of title, I can do that. So you can sort it the way you want it before you print. Now, since I have this list up here, I want to show you other things you can do. You can also look at the MARC layout of each record. So if I click this first button here, it shows you the MARC layout. And the reason why it's called the MARC layout is it shows you the number of each field, which is the MARC value. Or you can click the middle button and you can edit the bibliographic record right from here, just like you can in cataloging. And then if I click this last button right here, it'll show you all the holdings attached to that bib record. And now, since I have the holding up, I can then look at the MARC format of the holding, or I can edit the holding from here as well. Another thing you can do also is you can delete or purge books. The difference between deleting and purging is when you delete a book, it turns red, but it's still in the database. But when a student tries to search, that book that's deleted won't come up in the search result. Whereas if you purge the book, that will remove it from the database. So since I search for bibs, if I purge this bib, it will get rid of the bibliographic record and all the holdings that are attached to it. So if this bib, let's say, had 5 holdings attached, it would get rid of the bib and the 5 holdings. Or if I deleted here, it would delete the bib and the 5 holdings attached to the bib. Now here is the only place where you can purge a record directly. In cataloging or in circulation, you have to delete the book first before you can purge it. But here you can purge it directly. Now you cannot purge records that have an open transaction or a message attached. If a record has a message or an open transaction, you are not allowed to purge that record. You can delete it, but you can't purge it. Now, you can also search for holdings. So if I go here and switch to bib holding, and I put an asterisk, which is going to search for anywhere, and I get my list of holdings, you got the holdings here. Now, it looks the same, but the difference is, if I choose to delete or purge one of these records, I'm not purging the bib now. I'm purging the holding. So, for example, if I have a bibliographic record that has 5 holdings attached to it, and I choose this holding, I only deleted one of the holdings attached to that bib. That bib will still have the other 4 holdings attached. But let's say if a bibliographic record has 1 holding attached. If I delete the last holding that belongs to that bib, it should automatically delete that bibliographic record and mark it red because it's now an empty bibliographic record. There's nothing in it. Okay? So if you ever have empty bibliographic records, what you can do is you can switch back to bibliographic, because you have to have the bibliographic table selected to get the option of search for bibs without holdings. So when you click this button, it's going to search for all the bibliographic records that are empty, excluding ebooks. It won't show you ebooks because the ebooks are usually empty. They usually don't have holdings because they're not a physical object. So it'll bring up all the empty bibs except the ebooks, and then you can, once you get the list, purge them from here. Another feature I want to show you, which is very useful, is this upload barcodes. So if I click upload barcodes, you will see that I can then go down here and click this box, and I can start scanning in barcodes in my library. So you might have a cart of books that you want to remove from your library. So you bring that cart of books over to your desk, you scan the books in, okay, and after you scan the books in, you click upload, and then it lists them down here. And then you can purge them. But remember, whenever you do it this way, you're purging the holdings, not the bib. You see, it defaults to the bib holding table when you're using the upload option. So remember, you're deleting the holdings. So once you purge the holdings, you always want to go and click search for bibs without holdings, because there's a possibility you might have purged the last holding of that bib, so you might have a bunch of empty bibs. So you click this, and then it'll find all the empty bibs, and then you can purge those empty bibs after.
Okay.
Another option I wanted to show you, and you only get this option when you have bibliographic selected, is, if I do another search here, you got these merge boxes. So let me explain to you what the purpose of the merge box is. Whenever you have 5 copies of a book, the proper way to catalog that book is you create one bibliographic record and you add 5 holdings to that bibliographic record, like I showed you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes librarians will make a mistake, and instead of creating one bib and adding 5 holdings to it, what they'll do is they'll create 5 separate bibliographic records and add 1 holding to each one of those bibs. And sometimes they'll discover that after they've done it. So let's say you discovered it, and now you want to fix it. So you would search for that title, and you get all the books listed with the same title. So let's pretend these are the same title. And what you would do is you would put a check mark next to the bibs that you want to get the holding out of. So I want to take the holding out of these 4, and then you click merge next to the item you want the holdings to go to. So if I click this merge button, it will take the holdings from this bib, this one, and move them all into this one. And then these bibs should then be marked deleted because they're empty now. And now you fix the problem. You put all the holdings into one single bib, and now you can go and purge these bibs afterwards. You can purge them because they're empty.
Okay.
That's what the merge button is for. All right, so that completes everything I wanted to show you in this find and replace. In the find and replace, you can also do, if I click next here, you could also do actual find and replaces, where if there's a value in a field and you want to change it for, let's say, a bunch of records all at once, like if you have a name or a call number and you want to change it to a bunch of records at once, you could do that here. But we prefer that if you need to do that, you call us instead and have us do that for you.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Now I'm going to talk to you about collections. Collections is where you can put a bunch of books together. For example, let's say you're going to assign a project to the students. And let's say we're going to assign a project. So I'm going to click new. I'm going to create a new collection. And we're going to create a new project called computers. And I'll click save. Oh, I always do that. I type it in the wrong box. I'll type it in the big box. Save. Oh, I must have already created one called computers. Well, let's create a topic called candy. Kids like candy. So I have a collection called candy. I'm going to now add books to that collection. So I click the pencil there. And now I'm going to click upload. And I'm going to just put in some barcodes. Click upload. And I'm adding these books to this collection called candy. And I click save. And now they're in the candy collection. Now, one thing that's important is you'll notice right here, it says search bib 960 pound A. The reason why it says that is whenever you add a book to a collection, the name of that collection will be in the 960A field of the bibliographic and the holding record. And that's important for what I'm going to show you later. So just remember that. Whenever you add books to a collection, the name of the collection you added the books to, the name will be in the 960A of the holding and the bib record.
Okay.
That's all I want to show you now about this. We're going to show you more about this later on. So now we're going to go to picture upload. This is used to upload pictures to patrons. So what you do here is you click the folder, you navigate to where the patron pictures are, and here they are. So I'll just choose a couple pictures. I'll choose 4 pictures. And notice when I click open, It looks like it only added one picture, but don't let that fool you. The 4 pictures are there. And then to get the pictures attached to the patrons, you click upload, and then it'll upload the pictures. Now, one thing that's important is when you have a JPEG file, you want that file name to be the barcode of the patron. So if you have a patron with a barcode of 123, you want the JPEG to be called 123. Because what happens is when you click upload, the system is going to compare the name of those JPEG files to the barcode of the patron. When it finds a JPEG file whose name matches that patron's barcode, the system will know to attach that picture to that patron. And that's all there is to the picture upload.
Now, when would you use that?
If you want the pictures to show, a lot of libraries don't use it, some do. It's so that when you go into circulation, the person's picture will come up.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the purpose of it.
Okay.
Message management. This is where you can create item messages or patron messages. I'm going to create a patron message, and I'm just going to type a message saying, do not loan to this person. And then I'll click add. So I just created a message for the patron. I'm going to show you how you attach this message to a patron when we get into circulation. All right, that's the end of that. And this is a new feature we're going to be offering. I don't think it's available yet. Recently used barcodes. It shows you what barcodes you recently used, which could be useful, so you know what barcodes you've used.
Mm-hmm.
And that completes the find and replace.
Okay.
Now I'm going to go into setup and show you that. So to go into setup, you just click enter setup. And then you just click admin. I'll put admin for the login and Boca space return for the password. Now, a lot of times you have the same login here as you do in logging into the regular area. Even though they're the same login, they're not the same patrons. This login here is not related to that login. All right, so let me make sure I typed it in correctly. All right, so now I'm in setup. First screen you have is server configuration. This screen here, you don't have to worry about. We set that up for you. And then here you got library settings. Here you can click browse and browse for a different logo if you want, but usually you don't have to do that. We set up the logo for you. Here's where you put the name of the library. And then here is that email address that controls where that contact librarian goes to.
Okay.
So that's where that email will be sent, right here. And then if you go to options, we got different things you could do here. I'm not going to cover them all, but I'll show you. Remember I told you could change the names of those boxes, the visual search, the gallery.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to change the name is you just type a name into the box. Whatever name you type into this box, it'll show that name instead of the default name, which is visual search. That's all there is to that.
Okay.
Let's say if you wanted to turn off the visual search or the recommended reading or the gallery or the bulletin board buttons, you just change on to off. That's all you do there.
Okay.
Or if you don't want the reading levels, like the Lexile, the Fountain Penal, you turn them off here. Or by default, when you get your search results, it shows you the results in bibliographic format. We usually set customers up in expanded label format, but these are the different formats that you can choose for the records to display in. And by default, your search results come up unsorted because they'll come up faster that way. But if you ever want your search results to be sorted, you can click here and you can choose any one of these sort methods. It'll take a little bit longer to get your results because it has to sort them before it displays them. But you can select that if you want to.
Okay.
So that's just some of the things you can do here in this area. And here you got style. This is so you can change the background. Like right now, mine's set for world, which is blue with a globe in the background. Usually we set customers up for a solid blue background, but you could change how your background looks in this area here. Here, you could change the login and password to get into setup. So if you don't want to use admin bulk or spatial time, you could change it to something else.
Okay.
Record icons. This is what controls what icon shows up. So for example, this icon right here will show up if field 007 position 0 is equal to a V and field 007 position 4 is equal to a V. And let me show you what I mean by that. So if I go back here and let me close that, I don't want that. If I go back and search for a book, so if I edit this book and I insert field 007, you'll notice if I choose a V here for video recording, it expands, and now I can choose 4 and a V. So when I say field 007 position 0 is equal to a V and position 4 is equal to a V, this is what I mean. All right?
Okay.
So if I saved that item, then this icon would show when I do a search because it meets this parameter. Now you can add an additional icon if you want to. You can go here, click create new icon, and if you ever want to create a new icon, just browse for the icon and just fill in the OPAC box. You don't have to worry about filling in the XPath. Just fill in the OPAC box for the value that you want to tell that's required for that icon to show. All right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we go down to the Z3950 search. This is where your record fetches are controlled from. So by default, you're going to have the Library of Congress. You can add other record fetches here. You can go here, create new search, and add another record fetch. Whenever you add a record fetch, there's only 3 fields you need to worry about. You need to worry about the host. So you need to know what the host is. Like this is the host for Library of Congress. You need to know what the port is, and that's the port for Library of Congress. You need to know what the database name is. As long as you know these 3 things and fill those boxes in when you create a new search, and then you want to fill in the name so you know what that search is, like here we got Library of Congress, and then just save, you have added another record fetch. Usually you don't need to know the username and password because most places don't use it. And these boxes down here, right here, don't worry about those. Just leave them alone. All you got to do is fill in the host, the port, and the database name. And that's it.
Okay.
And if you want a list of sites that you could search, you could email me, and I can send you a PDF file. And my email is Michael D. That's MICHAELD as in dog, at mlasolutions.com, and I can send you that list. But a lot of times we'll set you up with already some default sites set up that we have.
Okay.
Here you got the visual search. So remember I told you there's 3 types of buttons here. Your topic button, your query button, and your link button. So let me show you what a topic button looks like. If I click the down arrow here and modify this button, this is a topic button. All it has is your caption and your description. The caption is so when you move the mouse over the button, it'll say what the button is, and the description is you see the name. So that's all that is. It's a topic button, like a folder. It's a button that you'll put other buttons in. And the other type of button is a query button. That's what a query button looks like. So this button, when I click on it, is searching for space travel, for subject, space travel.
Mm-hmm.
So you just click the button, it'll bring up all the books that have space travel and subject. And the last type of button is a link button. That's this button right here. If I click modify, That's what a link button looks like. And then this is the link right here that it will take you to when you click the button. Now, since we're here, I'm going to show you now how we can apply that collections. Remember, we created a collections called Candy. So I'm going to create a new button. I'm going to create a new query. There's my new button. I'm going to click the down arrow, choose Modify, and I'm going to type Candy. Well, first I want to add an image. I like to add an image. Pretend that's a piece of candy right there. And I'm going to upload it. And then I'm going to type Candy here. If I can spell it right. There we go. So remember I told you, when you add an item to a collection, it puts the name of that collection in the 960A field. So the reason why that's important is because I'm going to type 960 pound A. And just like before, I showed you, when you type a value in this little box, it overrides what's selected here in the drop-down. So instead of searching for the value in anywhere, I'm going to search it in 960A. And then I'm going to type Candy. Because all the items I added to the Candy collection will have the word Candy in 960A. So now I click Save. And now if I go back and open up my site, and go to here and look for that. Here's my Candy. So then if I click on it, it brings up the books I added to the Candy collection. So that's useful because that way you could give an assignment to the students and you could tell the students that this button gives you all the books that you're allowed to use for your research.
Okay.
And they don't have to do the search themselves. They just click it and it brings it up. So that's what's nice about the collection. So now going back into setup. Let me find my site. All right. Where is it? Okay, here we go. All right, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is the bulletin board buttons. Those are the 4 gray buttons going across. So the only thing here you have to do is you fill in the English box and give it a name and then put your link right here. That's it. That's all there is to it. Like right here, web search, and it's going to take you to that link. That's all there is to it. And then you click Save.
Okay.
Here you got your record templates. This determines which template comes up by default. So when you go to add a record, it's going to bring up the book template by default. But let's say you create yourself a custom template, like this one here I created earlier. I could click that, and then when I click Add Record, it will bring that template up by default. So
okay.
that's all that is. You can control your equipment templates, your holding, patrons, all here. Most of the time, you don't have to change these. They're set for what most people want to use. The only time you'd ever have to go in here is if you create a custom template and you want to make that template the default template.
Okay.
Here you got your recommended reading. This is where you add your recommended reading books. So for example, if you wanted to add another book, I could just click in this ISBN box right here, type in an ISBN number, click OK, and then when I click OK, all these other boxes you see here will be filled in automatically. And then you just click Save, and now you've added another recommended reading.
Okay.
And then if you want to add another recommended reading, you just click Create New Item, and then it'll add another one of these, and you can add another book. And then here are the gallery images. And if you want to add an image, all you do is you just click Create New Image, or Create New Item. And then you browse, find the image, upload it. And if you want to create a hyperlink for that image, you can put your hyperlink right here. And then you click Save, and that's all there is to that.
Okay.
All right, and that completes setup. Here. So let me go back where I was.
Sounds like you're beating up your keyboard.
I type hard. I always have. I always have. All right, so that completes everything I wanted to talk to you about in cataloging. Do you have any questions before we go to circulation?
Nope.
All right, so we go to circulation. Eventually it's going to come up. There we go. So to loan an item in circulation is very simple. You just put in the patron barcode. Patron comes up. Put in the item barcode. And there you go. I just loaned an item. That's how simple it is.
Yeah.
You can also put the patron's name if you want to, or the item's name. So you put a patron, scan the barcode, loans. And then I'm going to go back to the patron. I'm going to return that item I loaned. I'll go to return.
Return.
And it returned it. And now I'm going to loan that item to the other patron. Oops, got to switch back to loan.
Loan.
And you can also return from here as well. I can choose an item and click the down arrow and return it. You can also mark a book as damaged. In other words, if a person brings it back damaged. You can also mark it lost if the person told you that the book's lost. So you can also edit the patron here. I can click here and edit the patron. I can create a brand new patron here. So you don't have to create a new patron in cataloging. You can do it right here in circulation. Now remember that message I created back before? I'm going to show you. This is how you attach it. You click here, go to messages, click messages, look for the message that you created. So I got to switch to patron. Okay, there's the message. And now to add that message, all I do is just click the face right here. That's it, message added. Let me show you how it looks when the message is added. So now if I put in that patron,
Attention.
it says do not loan to this patron. So they'll know not to loan it. And then if you want to get rid of that message in the future so it doesn't come up, you just click detach. And now I think when I bring the patron back up, it shouldn't come up again. Yeah, see, no message. You can also renew items. So if I have this barcode here, 1, I want to renew it. I just click renew, scan the barcode,
Renewed.
and it renews it. And you can also reserve. Do you know what a reserve is? Do you know what that means?
Like if somebody wants a book and it's out to someone else and then you
Right. So
hold it for them?
right. So for example, if I have book number 1 loaned to patron 2 and patron 1 comes in and wants it, I can reserve it to patron 1. Then what happens is when book 1 is returned from the other patron, that reserve will automatically change into a hold. And then an email will automatically get sent to that patron that just had the hold, letting them know the book's in and for them to come and pick it up.
Okay.
And then when they come in and pick it up, you loan the item, and then they take the item out, and that hold changes to a loan. That's all a reserve is.
So you don't have to go back in and loan it out again. It's already automatically goes to loan.
Let me show you. So right now, this is on loan,
Okay.
book number 1.
Right.
So I'm going to switch to patron 1. I'm going to reserve that book.
Reserved.
So it's reserved. Now you'll notice there's no barcode assigned. That's why it's important to add a bunch of holdings to the same book if you have more than one copy, because when the book's brought back, it will put a hold on any of those holdings brought back because they're the same book. That way, this person will get the book quicker. You don't have to. You don't have to return that specific holding with that specific barcode. But if you made a mistake and you added the book 5 times by having 5 different bibs and add a holding to each one of those bibs, then this won't work. It'll have to be that specific barcode since that's the only barcode attached to that bib.
Right. Okay.
So now this is on reserve. So now I'm going to return that book. notice it says here, upon return of this item, please set it aside for the following patron. So it tells me to set this book aside for patron 1. And the send email box is automatically checked. And I click OK,
Return.
and then it automatically sends an email to that patron letting them know the book's in, and now you see the book is on hold.
Okay, now what if, like for these elementary kids, they don't all have emails and everything like that. So could that just send a message back
No.
to the librarian?
No, if there's
No.
no email address in the patron record, then that patron won't know it's in.
Okay, so we would just have to know, like when you return it, if it says it's on reserve, we just have to remember and write that down.
Right.
Okay.
Now there is a way where the librarian will get an email when an item's on hold. Let me show you that real quick. So if a patron is at home, let's say, and they're searching your library here, what they do is they search for a book. I'll just bring up some books. I don't have a lot of them. So let's say I want this book right here. I click here, and then I can select the book and click reserve right here. Well, it says the item couldn't be reserved. That's could be I'm not set up with everything, but usually it'll say item reserved. And what happens is when I reserve it from here, it'll place it on hold if it's available, and then you will get an email based on what. Remember that contact librarian email I put in there?
Right.
You will get an email letting you know that book's on hold, because if the person puts a book on hold from home, you wouldn't know they did that. So
Right.
so you'll get an email, then you know to go to the shelf and take it off the shelf, and then
Okay.
put it behind the desk, and the person will come pick it up. But the other way, when you do it in circulation, there's no reason to send you an email because it's telling you that
Right,
that
right
box
there.
comes up.
Okay.
So, but it's nice if you can get the emails and put them in the patron records.
See, we just have a small elementary school. That's what this is for. So,
Right. And then here's a booking. Now, booking is if you want to loan an item in the library for a certain period of time. So the way you do a booking, if I clear this, is you just put in a patron. I'll book number 12. And then I will choose hourly. I'll click add, and then I'll just say I want to do this from let's see. Let me go back. Okay, so I'm going to do from 1 p.m. until 3:30. Let's see how that works. I click OK. I click OK. And then you can see I booked an item from 11:33 till 3:58 p.m.
okay.
Status is nice to use because the reason why, let me explain something that's important to know. Circulation is always looking for the patron first and the item second. So if I happen to put a barcode of an item, I'm going to get please enter patron barcode. So I put a patron in and I get the patron. Now it's looking for an item. But you got to be careful sometimes here because sometimes people will put the title of a book in here. And sometimes in rare instances, the title of the book can also maybe match the last name of a patron for some reason. And then it'll give you a list and bring up a patron instead. So if you ever want to, or let me put it to you this way, this is a better explanation. Let's say if you're bringing up patrons by typing in the patron's name instead of putting in the barcode, since it's looking for the book now because the patron's already here, if I put in a last name of a patron and that patron's last name matches somehow something in a book, it will bring up the book instead. So if you ever want to be guaranteed it's going to bring up a patron when you're typing a patron's name in, clear the display first, then type the patron's name, because whenever this display is cleared, it's never looking for an item, ever. So you're always going to be guaranteed to get the patron. Whereas once the patron's up, if you type in a name here, you can get a book or an item.
Oh, okay.
All right, just remember that. So status mode allows you to type a item in even if the display is cleared. So if I type in 1, it brings up the item. And the nice thing about that is when you bring up the item, you can see who has the item. So you can see that this item is on hold for this person.
Mm-hmm.
You can also look at the history of the item. I can go here and go to item history and see who has had that item in the past. You can
Okay.
put that. And you can also bring up patrons as well. And then I can also look at the patron history. So that patron had that book in the past. So status is good to use. Self-check is used if you want patrons to check out books themselves and return books themselves. So when you go to self-check, the screen looks like this. And all they can do is check out books and return books. That's all they can do.
Okay.
They go back in. I keep messing that up. All right. You also have self-return if you want them only to be able to return. And then you have something called in-house transaction. All in-house transactions are, a lot of people don't use it, is you want to keep track of what books are taken off the shelf. So if I take a book off the shelf and I read it in the library, all you do is put in the barcode of the book, and then that's it. There's no patron involved. And then you can run an in-house report and see which books were taken off the shelf. A lot of libraries don't use that feature.
Okay.
And sometimes you have to hope the people cooperate, because if they take a book off the shelf and read it, you won't know they took it off. They'll just put it back on the shelf when they're done reading it.
Right.
Or maybe when you loan the book, you might want to also go to in-house and put the item there as well, so you have it in both places. Here you got library transactions. Before we get to library transactions, I want to make a book overdue real quick here, because I want to show you something important.
Attention.
So let me make a book overdue.
Loan.
Okay, so here you got library transactions. Library transactions shows you all the transactions that are currently open in the library. So you can see I have a booking, I have a loan, a hold, and an overdue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a nice feature because you can also sort by this. You click a column, you can sort by the column as well. Now, one thing I want to show you here is it's useful for making custom reports. Like, for example, let's say a teacher comes to you and they say, I need to see all the books that are currently out for my class. So what you can do is go here, choose teacher, type in the teacher's name as it's entered into the patron record, click search, and then you'll get a list of only the books that are out to that teacher, and then you could print that information and then give this report right here to the teacher.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And you can also do other custom reports. You can filter by grade, barcode, call number. You can also filter by the group. If you wanted to see all the items that are out by a specific patron group, you could do that here. So another thing I wanted to show you, let's clear the filter, is if you go here, let's say you want to see just the overdues. I can go here and click overdue loans all, and then I see just the overdue. But then you have this option here called Send Notification. So if I click the Send Notification button, it's going to send an email to all the patrons that have an overdue as long as they have an email address in their 110M field of their patron record. And this is what's going to be sent. If you don't want this, or if you want to add to it, you can type extra stuff, or you can even remove the whole thing and type what you want to say. And if you don't like the default message that comes up, you can email at support@mlasolutions.com, and we can put whatever you want in here by default, so you don't have to keep changing it. And then once I click Send Notification, it'll send the overdue notices. You can also send notices for fines as well. If I had fines and I went to Fines All, you can also send notifications for that. Now, since I showed that to you, I want to show you another option that you can have if you want it. Let me go there and I'll show it to you. Let's see. We can install this on our end if you want it. And what this does, it'll send out overdue notices without your intervention. So for example, if you want to send out an overdue notice 1 day after it's overdue, and then another notice 4 days after it's overdue, it'll do it automatically. So let's say today it's going to search all your patrons, and if it finds one that's 1 day overdue, it'll send those patrons an email. And then the next day, this one that got the email won't get it again because now the item's 2 days overdue. It doesn't match the criteria. And they'll get another email once they match the criteria of 4 days overdue. You can also have it send out emails 5 days before the item's due. And then you can send another email 1 day before the item is due. You can also send emails for fine notices. You can send an email 1 day after the fine notice is created and 2 days after the fine notice is created. And this will do it all automatically behind the scenes, so you don't have to go to Library Transactions and click that Send Notification button. So if you want this set up, you can email support@mlasolutions.com and put in there the parameters that you want, and then we can set that up for you.
Okay.
If you want that. So now going back where I was. And that's basically some of the features I wanted to show you here in this area. You can do other things like bookings and holds and all that. But this can be very powerful because you can do all kinds of custom type reports in there. Like I said, you can, and remember, this area is all the items that are currently out that are open transactions.
Mm-hmm.
So let's continue. You got your options. Here, you got your schedule. So by default, the due time is the closing time the item is due, and make item due on the first open day that follows the close day. You can change these. And then this is the schedule itself. It shows you the days you're open and closed, and what times you're open and closed. You can create multiple periods. For example, if your summer classes are different than your regular school year, you can create another period that it will change to automatically. But typically people usually have one period set up. And then here you got your holidays and exceptions, which you could put here like Christmas, spring break, Thanksgiving. And then here you got your global recall date. Let me explain to you what this is. This is very important. The global recall date, the way it works, is it guarantees that all books will be returned no later than what the global recall date is set for. So in this example, I have it set for May 30th. So the way this works is, let's change it in the future since we're past that. All right, so right now I have August 14th. So let's say I have a 2-week loan period. If I loan a book today that has a 2-week loan period, nothing special will happen. that book will be due 2 weeks from today. But let's say I loan that same book on August 12th. What will happen is that book won't be due 2 weeks from August 12th. That book will be due on the 14th because this will act as a brick wall. And the closer you get to this date when you're loaning books, if the system detects that the loan period will take the due date past this date, this will act like a brick wall and force the book to be due on this date. So libraries will always put a date in here that they would need all the books back by before the end of the school year.
Right. Okay.
All right, that's what that is. And here you got your group notifications. You click there. You can select which group you want to send messages to. Type a subject, a message, click send notification. And all the patrons in that group that have an email address, they'll all get the message that you sent. Now, some other important features I want to show you is also an option. Let's go back there real quick. If you got your miscellaneous settings, you click here. You can enable sound. So if you have speakers attached and you want to hear the system say loan when you loan a book, you can turn that on. This you always want to make sure is checked. Remember I told you we were in cataloging tools, and if you delete the last holding that belongs to a bib, it will automatically delete that bib. Well, this is that delete bibliographic when last holding is deleted. So when you remove the last holding that's in that bib, and now the bib's empty, this will cause that bib to be deleted.
Okay.
And then you got other options here. You can choose to print checkout transaction receipt. If you go here, you got your other options for your return renew operations. One more thing I want to show you here in miscellaneous settings is if you go down here and go to edit the SMTP server email notification settings, if you check this box right here, email transaction receipt, then if the patron has an email in their record, they will get that receipt emailed to them.
Okay.
All right. And some other important things I want to show you about circulation is this. Let's say your internet goes down and you can't use Mandarin, and now you're forced to write down your transactions on a sheet of paper. And then the next day, Mandarin you're able to use again because your internet's working. So now you want to put those transactions into Mandarin, but when you put them in, you want it to make it look like they were done on the day that they were actually done. So what you would do then is you would put in the patron first,
Attention.
and then you will click here, change date. And then I could change this date to yesterday. Click OK, and now if I loan a book,
Loan.
you see it looks like it was done yesterday.
Okay.
But remember, as soon as you put another patron in, the
Goes
date,
back to the.
yeah,
Okay.
and you have to change it back again.
Okay.
Another date feature you can use is whenever you loan a book, the loan period is defined by the period set in the item group the item belongs to. So let's say you want to loan a bunch of books for a certain specific date. You can go here where it says session due date, click the down arrow, and I want all my books to be due on August 15th. And then you have to make sure that you have this box checked. And now if I loan an item,
Loan.
it's due August 15th.
Oh, okay.
And this date will not change. I can change to another patron, and it'll still loan a book to on that day, August 15th.
Loan.
And then if you want to shut it off, you have to uncheck the box.
Oh, okay.
Another thing I want to show you is, let's say you need to change a due date of a book. You see this date's due July 25th? If I click that, I get a calendar that'll come up. I change that, and I want to make it due the 26th. I click OK, and now it's due the 26th.
Okay.
So I want to show you that. So in groups, Here, you got your item groups and your patron groups. So if I go to item groups, you got different options. So right now I'm in a patron group. So if I go to circulation blocks, this means that this person in the administrator group, when they log in, they can do all these different features right here. Okay? They have access to that. If I go to circulation limits, this means that this person has no limits. They can have as many books out at a time as they want. If I set, for example, the loan limit here for 2, that means that person can only have a maximum of 2 books out at a time. Circulation access, this controls what rights they have. So if you're an administrator, you have rights to do all these things in circulation. So if you have, let's say, a library assistant, you might want to uncheck everything and then just leave loans selected so all they can do is loans. Okay. And then here you have OPEC access. You can change different settings there. And then here you got cataloging access. So people in an administrator group can do all these things in cataloging. You could just uncheck anything you don't want them to be able to do. Item group override. This is important. What the item group override does is, let's say in the general collection item group, you have a 2-week loan period. If you have a 2-week loan period, but let's say for a particular patron group, you don't want them to have items loaned out from the general collection for 2 weeks. You want them to have the items for only a week. So what you can do is you can click the item group overrides, check the general collection box, click the pencil, and I can change this to 7 days, click apply and OK, and apply and OK, and now you will notice when I go to administrators and I go to item group overrides, that means if I loan any item in the general collection to an administrator, they will get the book loaned for 7 days, while everybody else in the other patron groups will get it for 14 days.
Okay.
And then here you got your members. Let me go to a different group so I can show you the members. So if I go to patrons here and edit the patron group, and I go to members, it shows you who's in that group. If I wanted to move this patron to a different group, I can just click on the patron, I can select a different group, and then click move to, and that patron will move to that other group. And it works the same thing for items. Okay? And then here you got your utilities. You can tell them what utilities you want them to be able to do by checking the box. Now, let me show you real quick what a general collection looks like. If I go to the general collection, which is an item group, and go to circulation periods, you can change the fine amount, the maximum fine, the daily fine, the loan period, how many days you want the item loaned for, how long you want the renew period to be, the grace period. What a grace period is, if a book, let's say, is overdue, the 7-day grace period here means if you return the book within 7 days or less, no fine will be created. So, but if you return a book on the 8th day it's overdue, then a fine will be created equal to all of the 7 days. Okay?
Okay.
Then you can set here your reserve period and your hold period. So if I have a reserve set for 7 days, after 7 days, if that reserve doesn't change to a hold, it'll just disappear. It'll just disappear.
Okay.
Now to add a group, all you do here is you just choose what type of group you want to add. I click here, I go to add item group. And then if I do that, it gives it a group here called new item group 1 by default. And then if I edit that group, I change the name to what I want. And then I click apply and OK. And now I have a group called music. And then I can edit that group and assign my circ periods to it, the length of times I want. And then I can add items to this group. All right, so do you understand everything about groups?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to reports. So I'm waiting for it to go to the reports. Okay. So here, to run a report, we're going to go to labels, and we're going to go, I'm going to run the sequence of barcodes report. So I'm just going to click that. It says, please enter the first barcode. So I'll put 3,000. I click OK. It says, please enter the number of barcodes. I'll put 20, and then I'll click OK. And then you get to the screen here. Let me explain to you what this is for. So if I click this box, Save to My Reports, and I submit the report, it will save the reports here in My Reports. Now, it doesn't save the report results. It saves the report parameters. So, for example, you'll notice when I ran this report, it asked me what barcode I want to put. I put 3,000. How many I wanted, I put 20. So if I save it, next time I want to run the report, if I go to My Reports, I'll see the report, I'll run it. It won't ask me those questions again. It'll just know it'll know what to do. And when you save it to My Reports, it's only for you. Only you can see those reports, no one else. But if you feel you're going to use a parameter that a lot of people are going to be interested in, you can click here and save it in common reports. Like, for example, if you run a report and you always find that you're sorting the report by call number, you don't want to have to run the report and tell it to sort by call number again, so you could save it to common reports, and then whenever you run that same report from common again, it'll automatically sort by call number.
Okay.
And then you have this option here where you can put your email address, and then when you submit the report, you'll get an email with a link, and then when you click on that link, it'll take you to the report results. I'm not going to fill in any of these. I'm just going to submit the report. And then whenever you submit the report, it goes into the queue. And you have to wait for the report to move from the queue to the results. Once it moves from the queue to the results, you can then just click on the report and you will see the results.
Okay.
All right. And that's all there is to reports. Now, I wanted to show you something else. We have a new report module for M5. And if you want to request it, you can email support@mlasolutions.com. And let me show you what it looks like. So I'm going to sign in here. Whoop. I think I put it in capitals. It's got to be lowercase. All right, so this is what the new report module looks like. So let's say I want to run a label report. I click the plus sign for barcodes, and I'm going to run a report for item group. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to type in the name of my item group. I'm going to tell it what position I want to start at, because remember, you have a sheet of labels, and maybe you use the first 5 labels in the sheet. So I'm going to tell it the position, click Run Report, and I get the results. Notice I didn't have to wait for it to move from the queue. I got the results right away, instantaneously. And plus, you're going to have different reports here that you have in the other area. Like, for example, you might want to print barcodes for items based on a date range. So let's say you put in 20 items today, and they're the only items you put in, and you want to print the barcode for those 20 items. You could just put today's date twice, and it'll print barcodes for those 20 items. And you could do the same thing for spine labels. So that can be very useful. So if you want this installed, email support@mlasolutions.com, and we could install that for you.
Okay.
So that's reports. One thing I want to show you also reports is this. If I go back to reports, let's go back to the beginning. You have this thing called Easy Label. If you click that, here you can also print a bunch of barcodes. So if I put in barcodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now if I click this barcode tab, it gives me the sheet of labels, and I could click on the specific label I want to start printing at. So if I click on this label here, it prints all of them on that label, and then you can print. And the same thing, a lot of people think if you want to print spine labels, you're going to enter the call number information. No, you enter the same barcode information, and you click on the spine label, you get the template, you click, and then it prints the spine labels.
Okay.
So that could be very useful here as well. And then you reset it, it blanks it out, and you can start all over again.
And that's from reports. Okay,
Go to
create
reports,
report.
and then go to Easy Label.
Right, number 10. Okay.
Now we're going to go to inventory. Do you have any questions or reports before I go?
No.
All right. So
That was pretty good.
Inventory. So I'm waiting for it to go there. Waiting. Hopefully it's going to go there soon. Ah, okay. Let's remove this. Okay. All right, so this is inventory. So the way you do inventory is it's very simple. You just go step by step. First thing you have is you have your library statistics. You can click that. And it'll tell you how many bibs you have, how many holdings, number of records without a barcode, 1, number of deleted holdings, we have 0, number of missing, 0, and number of items with prices, 12. So all my items have a price in the 852.9 field of the holding record. That's where it looks for. So that's a very useful tool right there. And now to do inventory, you just click Do Inventory. And then you can check here if you want it to check call number sequences. A lot of people don't want that because if you have it checked, then if you scan books out of call number order, they'll show up in a tab of books out of order. A lot of people don't care about that, but we'll leave it checked anyway. Now, you could do 2 types of inventory, a full inventory or a partial. I'm going to show you how to do a partial first. So to do a partial, after you see the screen, you just click Next. And you click Next regardless if you're doing a partial or not. You have to click Next. But if you're doing a partial, then you have to go here and, well, the next step you do here is you have to upload your barcodes. That's the next step, upload your barcodes. So let's go back, we'll do it again. So you do inventory, do what you want to do here, click Next. And now you upload your barcodes. So the way you upload barcodes is you upload them from a file. So the way we tell you to do inventory is you open up Notepad. Are you familiar with Notepad?
Yeah.
Okay. So you open up Notepad, you scan your barcodes into Notepad. Just like that. And then you save the Notepad file. A lot of times, if you're going to, let's say, do a fiction section, you scan the items in the fiction section, you save the file, you call it fiction. If you're scanning items in the 700 Dewey section, you save the file as 700. After you have the file saved, you just go to Upload Barcode, browse to where the file is. So I'll just go to where I have some inventory file. I'll just choose this one, and then I click OK, and you can see it put barcodes 1 through 6 there. So I just added a barcode file. I'm going to remove that. I don't want it there. Now the next step is after you add all your barcode files, you click Next, and this is where if you're doing a full inventory, you would just click Do It. You just click Run Inventory. But if you're doing a partial, you have to click Create New Call Number Range. So I click Create New Call Number Range, and then you have these boxes. So the classification box is field 852H of the holding. That's very important to know that. So you might want to write that down. That's 852H of the holding. And the way this works is the first box is equal to or greater than, and the second box is less than. So let's say I want to do a partial inventory on just fiction. I'll put FIC to FID. So what I'm saying here is only pay attention to items that are equal to or greater than FIC, but less than FID. Which means basically it's just going to do FIC.
Yeah.
All right. And you also have here a prefix box. What the prefix is that's field 852K of the holding. So if I leave this box unchecked, inventory doesn't care if there's a K or what the value is of K. It's just going to do inventory for the FIC books. If I check the box and leave it blank, now it's only going to pay attention to items that don't have an 852K, that don't have it.
Okay.
If I put a value in here, Now it's only going to check those items that have FIC and A52H and has HHH and A52K. And the reason why you do these partial inventories is so because if you're doing a fiction, you're only scanning the fiction books. And as far as inventory is concerned, that's all that exists in your library. All those other books, inventory will not see. So by doing this, you won't get a ton of missing items showing up in inventory.
Oh, okay.
That's what the purpose of doing the partial is. You have to tell it. Otherwise, if you don't put this parameter in there and you scan only your fiction section, it's going to check all your other sections and it's going to determine those are missing because you didn't scan them in.
Right. Okay.
So my example here, I'm going to do I'm going to do a full inventory. Okay? So in that case, I don't have to go here. I just click do inventory or run inventory. So I'm going to run it and then I got my results. It'll take you longer because you're going to have more records before you get your results. So it shows you a summary here, and then it gives you all these different selections. Let me explain to you what each of these are. So the first one is newly found. Now, if it's grayed out, that means there's nothing there. But let me explain to you what newly found is. Newly found is items that were marked missing, but because you scanned them into inventory, that means you must have found them because you scanned them in. And so
Right.
that means they're newly found. And then in the newly found tab, there's a button you could click on to tell the system you found them so they're not marked missing anymore.
Okay.
Missing, these are items that you did not scan into inventory, that are not on loan, and because you didn't scan them into inventory and they exist in your database, they're going to come up as missing. And there's two different colors you're going to see here. You're going to see a red color or a black color. Red means they are not marked missing yet, but they're coming up missing because you didn't scan them in and they're not on loan. So you have to determine if these items are truly missing. You have to try to find them. And if you can't find them, then you can click here, mark items as missing, and then all these will be marked missing and they'll turn black. That's why sometimes you might see a combination of red and black in here. Black means the item has already been marked missing and is still missing. Where red means it's never been marked missing, but it's coming up missing, and you have to determine if you should mark them missing.
Okay.
And then here you got invalid barcodes. Here you will get values. If you scan a barcode that doesn't match any barcode in your system, it'll come up invalid. So you might have forgot to put the barcode in the system. Maybe the bar you're scanning is not scanning correctly, or maybe someone incorrectly put the barcode in the system. So that's when it'll give you invalid barcodes. Misplaced. If you get anything in misplaced, that means that those books were scanned out of call number order. They just weren't scanned in the order they should have been scanned in on the shelf. Maybe the books were not put in order on the shelf. Loan shelved. Any items that show in loan shelved are items that you scanned into inventory that are currently on loan will show in loan shelved. So what this is telling you is these books you scanned in are still on loan. You need to return them. Maybe a book was returned, the librarian got distracted, forgot to return the book in the system, and just put it on the shelf. So anytime you scan an item and it shows up in loan shelved, that means the item's still on loan. But it can't be on loan because you just had it in your hand. You scanned it into inventory. So anything that shows a loan shelf, you need to return it. Duplicate barcodes. You should never get anything in duplicate barcodes because the system shouldn't allow you to have a duplicate barcode. Because if you try to use a barcode that's already been used, you should get barcode already in use. So if you ever get anything that shows in duplicate barcodes, you should call us to fix that. Now you will get items in duplicate barcodes if there's a bunch of items that don't have a barcode, because then they're all blank and they're all the same, so yes, they're duplicates. Those you don't have to worry about.
Okay.
And then out of range. Out of range, you will only get items in out of range when you're doing a partial inventory. So for example, if you put FIC to FID as the range, and then you scan in a book into inventory that's got 800.365, that book is out of range. It's not within the range that you specified, which means most likely someone put a book on the fiction shelf that doesn't belong there and instead belongs in the 800 shelf.
Okay.
It's out of ranges. And that completes everything I wanted to show you about inventory. There's a couple other things you can do in here, but if you need to do that, we can go over that later. So if you have any questions on what I covered in inventory.
No, that's pretty self-explanatory.